Well, I'm joined now by Peter Henley, BBC South political editor. Thank you very much for joining me. And I need to now add to your introduction, of course, the host for today, the beloved host.
Well, hopefully people have been seeing the introductions that I've been making, but I've got to sing for my supper as well. This is a day job for me. I'm really interested in the Freeport, which is why I said I'd come along and do the hosting. But I've also got to do a report for South Today this evening, 6:30.
Okay, so you've got two hats on today, I see.
I have, yeah.
Yes.
But I'm also, I think during the question and answer, hopefully we've got a couple of questions from the people who are watching online, but I was asked to be difficult.
I'm glad you've brought that up because I was going to...
Do you think that was a bit too difficult?
No, I think it's good to make sure that we've got that angle and, give people a chance to answer some questions that many people may have been asking themselves at home.
Well, also in the room, we've got a lot of experts here. So the people from Southampton University who were asking about some of the green issues and who came back and said to the people from ExxonMobil, look, blue hydrogen is not what we want. We want green hydrogen, which uses electricity that's been from renewable sources rather than electricity from fossil fuels. Esso keep wanting to produce oil, don't they? And okay, so should they be getting tax breaks as part of the Freeport when they are making an awful lot of money from the increased oil prices? So I was really glad as well that we were able to spread that out to the audience to get responses, as well as some of those expert questions. And I think they were up for that, because the other big question is, will this Freeport just suck in work and current jobs which are in other parts of the country from people who want to operate more cheaply? And so therefore will we disadvantage other areas? And there is a mechanism there, but you get the sense that it isn't fully understood by everybody. So I was glad we were able to push them a bit on that.
Yes, and I'm glad you were able to make the most of that opportunity, because it's a valuable opportunity, isn't it, to put those questions direct in that space, in that room. So well done for doing that. Probably not an easy position to be in. Not an easy position to be in.
Yeah, are you going to get the people from Esso here? 'Cause they don't talk very often.
I mean, I'm not going to get involved in any of that right now, to be honest. I feel like that's not my place at this point.
If you were at home and you were watching I think he's Italian, the manager who's here, obviously interested in hearing the detail of how they can participate in this Freeport.
That's true.
But at the same time, as a journalist locally, I'm regularly trying to find out what's happening within the refinery site, largest in Europe, big employer locally, and yet, because it's fossil fuels, really on the back foot. And so interesting to see that a big American company is prepared to come to something like this and become involved in the whole process. And they are giving up a little bit of power by saying you can use some of our land for this, just as the councils are giving up a bit of power by saying we will pool the rates that we receive, and then the Freeport on itself can spend that wherever it thinks fit. So for individual councillors in the New Forest, for example, who are used to saying, we're short of money for child support services, we're short of money for building new roads, we can't afford to do the weekly bin collection. And yet they're going to hand over the rates which they receive from these new businesses going into the Freeport to something that's controlled along with authorities of a different political complexion. So Portsmouth is run by Liberal Democrats, so is Eastleigh, Southampton is now run by Labour. Those councillors together will decide how that money is spent. It's a brave new world.
Yes, okay, so let's delve a little bit into the mood in the room here today then. So you've been on the stage, you've looked out, into the faces of some very curious people, some people that have got, things they want to know and agendas, and also you've spoken to the guests and to the speakers, both on stage and I'm sure off stage, mingled. What is the general impression from a host's perspective? What does the mood feel like in the room, and where is there excitement and where is there caution, I suppose?
I got the sense that people were a little cautious when they arrived. This is a first early chance to learn about what will be involved in the Freeport. It's the launch of the 2050 strategy, and all these things are still evolving. And I think from little glimpses, and there's a lot of expertise in the room, and I think that people will have picked up things which were useful to themselves. And maybe in weeks and months ahead, they'll think that the guy who asked the question about electric boat manufacture, and then somebody else chipped in, and somebody else, and maybe also people they've met. I think that's where this can be valuable for people. But there is still not seeing the wider picture and how they might fit into it. which they will get excited when they can say, hang on a minute, I can write off all my national insurance contributions. There are no capital allowances for these buildings. There is no tax for 5 years on this. On the other hand, they may be in competition with a different sort of business that wants to use that space, and they need to be sure that the thing is going to be run properly so that they get the opportunities they do need. And until we actually start seeing it working, we won't know for sure.
Yes, that's true. And I think one very important thing about today is, as you say, it's opened up and facilitated discussion. And with a lot of guests that I've spoken to today, they keep saying it's all about collaboration, keeping the conversations open, being receptive to other people's thoughts and ideas. And that really has come through today already, hasn't it?
Yes, and people they're in there now. There's quite a nice lunch. But
I'm keeping you from your lunch.
That wasn't a hint.
It was a hint.
Okay, it was a bit of a hint. It's a nice lunch, which I've not had yet. But the people who've had it are now busy in conversation with people they know, but also people they're being introduced to. And have you met so-and-so? And I think that may be some of the most valuable thing about this. Bear in mind, we're bringing together Portsmouth and Southampton for a start. We're also bringing in the airport along with the ports and the military port and an oil refinery and a huge housing and commercial development. There's a lot going on, and the distribution park at I can never remember Dunsbury Park, not Dunsbury Farm. So
very different.
That's that, and that's owned by Havant but run by Portsmouth. All these things are pretty complicated, but I think that together there will be a bit of a... And the Freeport label, the head of the Freeport, Brian Johnson, is saying, we could call it just an economic zone, and it doesn't really mean very much. But it is actually something people can latch onto, and then it will have its own meaning when we see what it's actually delivering. At the moment, Freeport means a bit Wild West, but that gives it maybe a bit of an edge and makes people more interested. If you just called it an economic zone, people are a bit dull.
Switch off, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the idea that... did you hear me talking about James Bond?
I did indeed, yes.
See, that's
Edge straight away is...
Isn't it? Jumping from crane to crane across Southampton Port, and then getting a tax break on the way out. It's got to be a bit more exciting than some of what we've heard.
Yes, well, do you know what? Thank you so much for your insights, because they're new, unique and refreshing, different to what I've heard so far. Not refreshing in terms of what I've heard so far today, but just...
Telling me everyone else is boring.
I'm saying it's just a different angle, which is very interesting to hear about.
We hope it'll carry on into the next segment, and there are going to be different things happening on different stages, so it's getting a bit more exciting here in the room. But for people who aren't able to be here and are watching at home, I hope it's a good experience for them. Hope you're getting something out of it.
Absolutely. Well, time for lunch, I think, for you. Yeah. Yes.
And some more. Got to do some more interviews, so I get it on the telly by 6:30.
Oh gosh, okay. Right. I will hold you not a second longer. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Goodbye.